Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Secretary of the Treasury Janet Yellen is easily one of the most incompetent people in our government. Yellen has run the Treasury and the Fed over the years, but is somehow economically ignorant enough to endorse the idea of taxing unrealized capital gains, which is widely considered to be an absolutely insane idea. As Joe Biden's head of Treasury, Yellen claimed inflation wasn't a concern as the government printed trillions of dollars and dumped it onto an economy forcibly shut down by COVID manic liberals. When inflation started to pound us, Yellen called it transitory. When it continued on and on and on, she finally admitted that she was clueless. Janet Yellen is the picture of economic incompetence and just one of the many faces of Joe Biden's cabinet, which has become the picture of American incompetence. And yet the media still seeks out her opinions for some reason, and with inflation likely to be Joe Biden's greatest liability, negatively impacting every single American citizen, Yellen was sent out today to claim that our inflation is pretty much just Donald Trump's fault.
The signature policy from the Trump years was the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, and it promised an investment boom which really did not materialize. It gave huge tax breaks to corporations and to wealthy individuals, and it resulted in an enormous increase in the deficit and lowered tax revenues below historic norms. And I think it's responsible for many of the problems that we face now with our fiscal trajectory.
Okay, so she said lowered tax revenue below historic norms was the line that she used there. Lowered tax revenue below historic norms. There is nothing you can do to infuriate the DC bubble more than screwing with their revenue. Leaving more money in the pockets of the people who actually earned that money is something that those inside the Beltway loathe. Right now, the Biden campaign is working around the clock to tether inflation to Donald Trump. It's one of their highest priorities in this moment. We're going to be hearing this claimed loudly on Thursday night's debate, of course. They've been building this narrative for quite some time.
When we walked into this administration, the economy was on a tailspin. That is the fact, because of the last administration.
No president's had the run we've had in terms of creating jobs and bringing down inflation.
Trump is also the reason millions of Americans are now unemployed. He inherited the longest economic expansion in history from Barack Obama and Joe Biden. And then, like everything else he inherited, he ran it straight into the ground.
Yeah. Now, while it is fair to say that Trump added to the deficit with his tax cuts, it is totally unfair to manipulate that fact the way that they do. Lowering taxes is the most virtuous thing that a leader can do for their people. It's something you almost never see, as governments typically are a cancerous growth that eventually swallow the entire country. From the New York Times, the government agencies that became smaller and unhappier under Trump. Of core cabinet-level agencies, they report all but 5 shrank under Trump. By 2020, there were 300 fewer federal employees at the Department of Education than there were when he arrived, 4,900 fewer at Interior, and 1,800 fewer at Labor. People love that about Donald Trump. Trump added to the deficit by taking less of your money. It's as simple as that. They never mentioned that fact, though. The left claimed he only helped billionaires with his tax cuts, even though the New York Times also begrudgingly admitted in 2019, face it, you probably got a tax cut because those tax cuts benefited about 90% of the people in this country. Now, conversely, Joe Biden has added to the deficit by taking your money and just simply lighting it on fire, dumping it into foreign conflicts, green energy, and a final COVID stimulus bill that was not needed and was largely stolen like the rest. Biden ramped up the morbid spending behavior in Washington that Trump so despises, that you so despise. Take a listen to Trump excoriate a D.C. favorite, the omnibus spending bills that nobody ever reads, thousands of pages, a devious spending scam which feeds all those special interests that are really running your country.
They get together and they create a series of documents that nobody's been able to read because it was just done. I say to Congress, I will never sign another bill like this again. I'm not going to do it again. Nobody read it. It's only hours old. Some people don't even know what it is. $1.3 trillion. It's the second largest ever.
They're scamming all of us. He knew it. That's why they needed to run him out of town. He wanted to cut taxes, cut government, cut special interests, a country that actually works for those of us that are outside of that beltway. Take a look at what's happened to spending in Washington over the last 6 years. Now, look back 2018, right over the shoulder. We used to spend a lot closer to what we brought in every year, around $4 trillion, right? And then COVID hits. And look at the spending ramp up. And now look at it. COVID is now gone, and it's long gone. There is no intention of ever returning to the days of 2018 and 2019. Biden has proposed spending $7.3 trillion for fiscal 2025. We're going to bring in around 4.5, maybe 5 trillion in revenue when it's all said and done. They have gone absolutely insane, adding close to 3 trillion in debt, a number you could never even comprehend. It is so big, adding that much debt in a single year. And they want to talk about inflation? As they continue to push an economic plan that will rapidly devalue every single dollar that you have, they then go on TV and lie to your face.
So yes, eggs and milk, and there were grocery things that were up. It has gone down. It has gone down since 2022. Gas prices, because of the actions that this president took, and let's not forget there was an invasion, but Russia did obviously into Ukraine that caused gas prices to tick up. The president took action, tapped the SPR, and we saw gas prices go down. The president has met the moment with every issue that we have had in front of us.
The price of nothing has gone down since 2022, the first thing she said. No consumer product has seen deflation in the last 2 years. They've simply slowed the rapid rise in prices by blasting interest rates through the roof and dumping ice water on the economy that they lit on fire with printed money. And the latest hilarity from these political snakes is a scheme to convince Americans to stick with Joe Biden and his $7.3 trillion budgets because Trump is the one that's going to make inflation worse. 16 Nobel economists all banding together. An Axios piece today. Investigate each one of these alleged economists, and you'll find a cadre of progressive economists, quite the oxymoron, most determined to redistribute wealth and fix perceived economic inequities. A band of Marxists all coming together with a lie about Trump to save the political disorder that's destroying your country, much like the 51 intelligence officials who lied to us in the last election.